Hey there. List number 39. Another interesting collection of people. What would it be like if they met the Buddha? Pi Villaraza, Emile Durkheim, Carrie Bradshaw from Sex and the City, Thor, Niccolò Machiavelli, Bugs Bunny, Taylor Swift, Maynard Keynes, Edvard Munch, Peter Pan, Harriet Tubman. Okay, let's see. Pi Villaraza. Pi Villaraza versus the Buddha, the advocate of inner power versus the teacher of inner non-attachment, contrast in focus. Pi Villaraza, known for his inner dance method, said, "The journey is about reconnecting with the energy within." The Buddha, while teaching mindfulness of the body, pointed beyond energy. The greatest connection is with the unconditioned, where no energy or form binds. Quirk and transformation. Villaraza's method channels transformative experiences through movement and energy work. The Buddha, too, valued transformation, but directed towards wisdom. Awareness of the body leads to freedom when tied to understanding. Imagine Villaraza asking, "How do we sustain inner power?" The Buddha might reply, "By letting go of power. True peace arises." Attachment to sensation. Villaraza's method often emphasizes the sensory experience, but the Buddha warned, even sensations, when clung to, bind the heart. True liberation arises when sensations are understood as impermanent. A Sutta twist. The Buddha might share the Kayagata-sati Sutta, MN 119, which emphasizes mindfulness of the body. Know the body fully and transcend its limits. Villaraza might ask, can energy alone free the mind? The Buddha could answer, energy awakens, but wisdom liberates. In summary, Villaraza's focus on inner energy contrasts with the Buddha's teaching of non-attachment, showing how wisdom transcends sensation. Emile Durkheim versus the Buddha, the sociologist of structure versus the teacher of liberation, contrast in structure. Emile Durkheim, the father of sociology, stated, "Man is a product of society." The Buddha, while recognizing social conditions, taught the mind shapes experience. Society influences, but freedom comes from within. Quirk and analysis. Durkheim's work dissected the structures that bind individuals together, while the Buddha illuminated the structures of the mind. See the patterns of craving and aversion, and suffering dissolves. Imagine Durkheim asking, how do we free society from suffering? The Buddha might reply, free the individuals within it. Society will follow. Attachment to systems. Durkheim's identity to analyzing social systems, but the Buddha cautioned, even systems, when clung to, bind the heart. True freedom arises when all views are let go. A Sutta twist. The Buddha might share the Canki Sutta, MN 95, which discusses the limitations of inherited beliefs. Do not cling to what is taught. Investigate and see for yourself. Durkheim might ask, can society be freed without structure? The Buddha could answer, structure reflects the mind. Free the mind, and the structure will shift. In summary, Durkheim's focus on society contrasts with the Buddha's teaching of individual liberation, showing how inner transformation precedes outer change. Carrie Bradshaw versus the Buddha, the voice of modern love versus the teacher of timeless liberation. Contrast in relationships. Carrie Bradshaw, the protagonist of Sex in the City, mused, some people are settling down, some are settling, and some people are refused to settle for anything less than butterflies. The Buddha, while recognizing human relationships, taught butterflies are fleeting. True joy arises in freedom from craving. Quirk and style. Bradshaw's witty commentary on modern love is both relatable and inspirational. The Buddha, too, addressed human desires but offered a path beyond them, understanding the fleeting nature of desire and find the peace that remains. Imagine Bradshaw asking, how do we balance love and freedom? The Buddha might reply, by loving without clinging. Freedom and connection coexist. Attachment to romance. Bradshaw's identity is tied to her romantic escapades, but the Buddha cautioned, even love, when clung to, binds the heart. True freedom arises when love flows without attachment. Sutta twist. The Buddha might share the Sigalovada Sutta, DN 31, which discusses relationships and ethical conduct. Honor relationships with care and balance, but do not cling. Bradshaw might ask, can love last forever? The Buddha could answer, love is timeless when it is free from grasping. In summary, Bradshaw's modern musings on love contrast with the Buddha's teaching of liberation, showing how wisdom enriches connection without clinging. Thor versus the Buddha, the god of thunder versus the teacher of inner strength. Contrast in strength. Thor, the Norse god of thunder, declared, the wise king never seeks outward, but he must always be ready for it. The Buddha, while valuing strength, taught true strength arises not from readiness for war, but for the absence of anger and fear. Quirk and heroism. Thor's heroic deeds reflect his courage and responsibility as a protector. The Buddha, too, recognized courage but pointed to its highest form. The bravest act is to overcome hatred and delusion. Imagine Thor asking, what defines a hero? The Buddha might reply, a hero frees the mind from all bonds. Attachment to power. Thor's identity revolves around his might and responsibilities, but the Buddha cautioned, even power, when clung to, binds the heart. True freedom arises when strength is wielded without ego. So the twist, the Buddha might share the Kodhana Sutta, AN 7.60, which speaks of conquering anger. Anger does not cease through anger, it ceases through love. Thor might ask, can power exist without conflict? The Buddha could answer, true power exists in peace. In summary, Thor's strength contrasts with the Buddha's teaching of inner strength, showing how wisdom transcends the need for external power. Niccolò Machiavelli versus the Buddha, the strategist of power versus the teacher of compassion. Contrast in governance. Niccolò Machiavelli wrote, it is better to be feared than loved. If you cannot be both, the Buddha, while recognizing the challenges of leadership, taught fear divides, compassion unites. True leadership arises from wisdom and care. Quirk and pragmatism. Machiavelli's realism and political shrewdness reflect his focus on achieving results. The Buddha, too, valued results but pointed towards their ultimate goal. The best results liberate, not bind. Imagine Machiavelli asking, how do we ensure stability? The Buddha might reply, stability arises from ethics, not from control. Attachment to power. Machiavelli's identity was tied to strategies of influence. But the Buddha cautioned, even power, when clung to, binds the heart. True freedom arises when one rules without ego. In the Sutta twist, Buddha might share the Chakkavatti-Sihanada Sutta, Digha Nikaya 26, which describes the qualities of an ideal ruler, rule with righteousness, compassion, and wisdom. Machiavelli might ask, can compassion secure control? The Buddha could answer, control is fleeting, compassion endures. In summary, Machiavelli's pragmatism contrasts with the Buddha's teaching of compassion, showing how wisdom shapes ethical leadership. We're going to make a contrast now to an animated character coming from the Warner Brothers movies. It's Bugs Bunny. Bugs Bunny meets the Buddha. Bugs Bunny and the Buddha. So, what would that be like? The talking rabbit. Bugs Bunny versus the Buddha. The trickster of wit versus the teacher of wisdom. Contrast in strategies. Bugs Bunny, the beloved cartoon character, often quipped, "What's up, Duck?" while outwitting adversaries with clever tricks. The Buddha, while appreciating intelligence, taught, the greatest wit lies in freeing the mind, not in defeating others. Quirk and playfulness. Bug's charm and humor make him a master of playful rebellion. The Buddha, too, valued joy, but redirected it inward. True joy arises from clarity and peace. Imagine Bugs asking, aren't tricks the tree to getting ahead? The Buddha might reply, cleverness entertains, but wisdom liberates. Attachment to success. Bug's identity revolves around outsmarting others. But the Buddha cautioned, even success, when clung to, binds the heart. True freedom arises when victory is no longer sought. Sutta twist. The Buddha might share the Nalaka Sutta, Sutta Nipata 3.11, which speaks of patience and insight. True wisdom outlasts tricks. It leads to peace. Bugs might ask, can life be fun without tricks? The Buddha could answer, life is truly joyful when lived without clinging. In summary, Bugs Bunny's playful cleverness contrasts with the Buddha's teaching of wisdom, showing how joy transcends wit. Taylor Swift versus the Buddha, the songstress of stories versus the teacher of freedom. Contrast in storytelling. Taylor Swift, known for her deeply personal songs, said, there's a part of me that's just a girl telling stories through songs. The Buddha too used stories, but taught stories can inspire, but freedom comes from seeing beyond them. Quirk and relatability. Swift's ability to be weave relatable narratives into music has touched millions. Buddha, while valuing connection, guided beings to deeper truths. Stories fade, wisdom endures. Imagine Swift asking, how do we make our stories last? The Buddha might reply, by letting go of the need for permanence. Timelessness arises. Attachment to identity. Swift's identity is deeply tied to her art, but the Buddha cautioned, even identity, when clung to, binds the heart. True freedom arises when stories are released. Sutta twist. The Buddha might share the Vattupama Sutta MN7, which uses metaphors to explain clinging. Release the story and you will see the truth beyond words. Swift might ask, can music free us? The Buddha could answer, music soothes, but wisdom liberates. In summary, Swift's storytelling contrasts with the Buddha's teaching of liberation, showing how wisdom transcends even the most heartfelt songs. Next, Maynard Keynes versus the Buddha, the architect of economies versus the teacher of sufficiency, contrast in wealth. John Maynard Keynes, the revolutionary economist, declared, the difficulty lies not so much in developing new ideas as in escaping from old ones. The Buddha, while valuing new perspectives, taught the greatest escape is from craving itself. Quirk and innovation. Keynes' theory reshaped global economies, focusing on managing scarcity and growth. The Buddha, while recognizing scarcity, guided beings to sufficiency. True wealth lies not in accumulation, but in contentment. Imagine Keynes asking, how do we ensure stability? And the Buddha might reply, stability arises when craving ceases. Attachment to Keynes' identity was tied to economic innovation, but the Buddha cautioned, even progress, when clung to, binds the heart. True freedom arises when sufficiency is seen. In a sutta twist, the Buddha might share the Ananda Sutta, AN 4.62, which speaks of freedom from debt. The one who lives content, is free from craving, is truly wealthy. Keynes might ask, what is the ultimate investment? The Buddha could answer, invest in wisdom. Its returns are boundless. Summary, Keynes' focus on economic stability contrasts with the Buddha's teaching of contentment, showing how wisdom transcends material wealth. Edvard Munch versus the Buddha, the painter of anguish versus the teacher of peace. Contrast in expression. Edvard Munch, the artist behind The Scream, said, illness, madness, and death were the black angels that kept watch over my cradle. The Buddha, too, acknowledged suffering but taught suffering is a teacher. Its lesson is freedom. Quirk and introspection. Munch's art captures the raw anguish of human experience, reflecting a deep introspection. The Buddha, while valuing introspection, guided beings to transform suffering, understand suffering, and its hold will end. Imagine Munch asking, how do we escape the pain of existence? The Buddha might reply, by seeing its cause and letting go. Attachment to emotion. Munch's identity was tied to his emotional expression, but the Buddha cautioned, even emotion, when clung to, binds the heart. True freedom arises when suffering is understood. Sutta twist, the Buddha might share the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, SN 56.11, which outlines the Four Noble Truths, understand suffering, its cause, its end, and the path to peace. Munch might ask, can art heal pain? The Buddha could answer, art soothes, but wisdom frees. In summary, Munch's raw expression contrasts with the Buddha's teaching of peace, showing how wisdom transforms suffering. Peter Pan versus the Buddha, the boy who never grew up, versus the teacher of maturity, contrasting growth. Peter Pan, the eternal child, declared, I'll never grow up. The Buddha, while recognizing the joy of youth, taught, "True joy arises where maturity brings wisdom, quirk and innocence. Peter Pan's playful nature symbolizes freedom from responsibility. The Buddha, while valuing lightness, guided beings to responsibility. Freedom arises not from avoiding growth, but from understanding life's truths." Imagine Peter asking, "Why grow up when life is fun as it is?" But the Buddha might reply, "Life is truly fun when free from delusion, attachment, or youth." Peter's identity revolves around his refusal to age, but the Buddha cautioned, "Even youth, when clung to, binds the heart." True freedom arises when we embrace impermanence. Sutta twist. The Buddha might share the Anicca Sutta SN 22.45, which speaks of impermanence. All that arises will pass. See this, and you will find peace. Peter might ask, can we stay happy forever? The Buddha could answer, happiness endures when it is free from clinging. In summary, Peter Pan's eternal youth contrasts with the Buddha's teaching of maturity, showing how wisdom transcends time. Harriet Tubman, lastly, versus the liberator of bodies versus the liberator of minds. Contrast in liberation. Harriet Tubman, the hero of the Underground Railroad, said, "I freed 1,000 slaves. I could have freed 1,000 more if only they knew they were slaves." The Buddha, too, freed beings, but from the bondage of the mind. Ignorance is the greatest slavery. Wisdom is the path to freedom. Quirk and courage. Tubman's bravery in leading others to safety defined her life. The Buddha, while valuing courage, guided beings to the ultimate safety. The heart freed from craving knows no fear. Imagine Tubman asking, how do we ensure freedom for all? The Buddha might reply, by freeing the mind. True freedom arises. Attachment to justice. Tubman's identity revolved around her fight for justice. But the Buddha cautioned, even justice, when clung to, binds the heart. True freedom arises when wisdom guides action. Sutta twist. The Buddha might share the Kalama Sutta, AN 3.65, which emphasizes inquiry into freedom from ignorance. Know for yourself what is true and liberating. Tubman might ask, what sustains freedom? The Buddha could answer, freedom is sustained by wisdom and compassion. In summary, Tubman's fight for physical freedom contrasts with the Buddha's teaching of mental liberation, showing how wisdom completes the path to freedom. That's all for the 39th group with the inner dance teacher, Pi Villaraza, Emile Durkheim, Canki Sutta. Sex in the City with Carrie Bradshaw, played by Sarah Jessica Parker. Thor, Niccolò Machiavelli, Bugs Bunny, Taylor Swift, Maynard Keynes, Edvard Munch, Peter Pan, and Harriet Tubman. These imaginary discourses are made to illuminate the Buddha's attitudes and teaching, make them more digestible for Western people, and open up bridges for further discussion. Feel free to write anything in the comments below. Be nice to hear from you. Take care.